Hello, welcome to Chick Chat and Chill. So today's episode's really exciting. We're talking about imposters. So is it really me or is it my twin sister? No, but it should be a good one. And we're just going to talk about kind of people that kind of fake who they are and what they do. And a lot of people just take them at face value, and ways that we could maybe discuss that and how not to be so naive about these things and not get duped. So stay tuned. Hello, thanks for coming back and staying with us. So I'm Antoinette. Before we dive in, I'm the owner of Pixel This, which is a full-service design firm. We really specialize in brand identity and promotions and things like that a lot of companies struggle with, finding their voice or finding how to reach their customers. But before we dive into today's topic, I want to introduce Laura, my co-host.
I'm Laura Fickett, and I'm not an imposter. I actually am a coach that has a CPA, an MBA, and I love to help people make more money, manage it, and retain it to build their wealth. I am the owner of Fickett Financial Education and Business Coaching, but we're going to talk about imposters today. And there are a lot of coaches that are out there that are imposters, but I'm not. If you need help, just call me. I do free consultations. I would love to help. But I think the coaching field, I was thinking about this, and I'm like, the coaching field has become a lot of imposters.
My God.
It's like crazy. I actually changed my business name to Fickett Financial Education and Business Coaching because I took out the financial coaching because like the word coach, now it's just like, well, I don't want to work in corporate America anymore. I'm going to coach people. And I'm like thinking to myself, I see a lot of people that they want to be a life coach and they've never had kids. They've never been married. They don't have their life together. And I'm like, how are you going to coach somebody on life?
Yeah.
You haven't experienced life and you don't have your life together. So imposter is all about, we have gotten into an age where I think people just take things at face value and you might be there like, no, I question everything. Yeah, okay, me too. But a lot of people just take things at face value. I'll give you a funny example. So we moved down to Florida 6 years ago, and my daughter moved to South Florida. And I said to her one day, I said, there's no geese in Florida. And she was like, really? And I was like, we were visiting Massachusetts at the time, and we saw geese. And I said it to her up there, so she couldn't do any research. She was like, really? I was like, yeah, there's no geese in Florida. Well, there's not a lot of geese in South Florida for sure, but there are geese in Florida. And she just, yes, I'm her mother and she should believe me, but she's in her 20s now. So really she shouldn't, because I was totally pulling her leg. But this went on for like 2 months where she believed that there was no geese in Florida.
No, but
I'm like, don't believe.
Yeah.
Well, trust your gut. You knew there was geese in Florida.
Well, the thing that I think upsets me is like, it's one thing to sit there and you joke like amongst friends or something like that. But when people actually, they have a business, kind of like you said, like even with the business coach, like you said that one guy popped in my head where the whole point, like in the name of his business was like millionaire mind something. But it was one of these things where he's not a millionaire. They have no furniture in their house. It's like hiring an exterminator who has roaches. That's basically what you're doing. And so many people would just sign up because it's this sales pitch. Like, you actually have to do a little research into who you're doing. And the one I see all the time, which I find infuriating, is I see all these people that, again, with these health things like, oh, we have this healthy place to eat, or I'm this health coach, and they're like the size of a house. And I'm like, again, like for me, like my biggest issue, like, if my whole day was spent, let's say, in a gym, like if I'm a physical, trainer or whatever, the normal excuse is I don't have time to get to the gym. That's the normal excuse people have a problem with working out or doing like that. So if you're actually hiring somebody who's in a gym all day long and is still huge, get a different trainer.
Yeah, maybe if you're trying to lose weight and they can't do it,
No,
They
like,
clearly can't take their own advice, right?
well, yeah. I mean, they obviously don't have the tools. If they can't even implement their own tools and they work in it, like, they have none of the excuses and clearly none of the information that you need. And I know there's a lot of people that, whatever, maybe they're way overweight or really unhealthy, and it might be a little, oh my gosh, I'll never attain this level of perfection. Well, you don't have to look like your trainer, but at least get a trainer that knows what they're doing.
Exactly. And I mean, there are exceptions to the rule. Obviously, I don't think that a psychiatrist should take every drug that they
Oh, yeah. Well,
prescribing. I don't think that that's a scenario, but they've been trained in the medical profession to be able to do that.
but they should be like a nut job. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want a psychiatrist that last weekend tried to take his own life, or like a marriage counselor who's going through a divorce, or, like, there's just some common things that I see all the time, and people just don't, like, they're like, oh, that is health, or they'll just take things at face value, kind of like the geese thing, and they never stop and look, like, does the message actually matter? Yeah. And I don't just common sense kind of flew out the window. And I think part of it is now everything's so politically correct. Like, I can't notice this physical trainer's fat. I can't notice their fat. It's body shaming.
Can you even say fat?
I don't care. Write bad things on our podcast. I don't care. But but
Just
it's
write them about Antoinette. Not about me.
But I'm saying, it's one of those, I wrote a book on the 7 deadly sins, and it's funny because you can call out every sin except, where you're overindulging on food. All of a sudden, that's become politically incorrect.
Sloth, you can't do that.
No, gluttony.
Gluttony, yes.
Yeah. So, you're not supposed to, it's a sin. And yet, if somebody has anger issues and they're beating their wife, or somebody's, an adulterer or whatever, you have no problem calling them out. But if someone can't put down the fork, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, you could write me hate mail, but to me, you got to sit there and just make it's okay. It's okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the person. We all sin.
No,
I'm not
but don't go into the
sinless.
profession
But
of
don't-
helping people lose weight. If
if somebody
go into a different profession.
Yeah, but if somebody has an issue, to make it a non-issue is not going to help them.
I know. And you know what? When I was younger, I used to hear oh, people are so busy, like the cobbler's, child doesn't have good shoes and whatever, that kind of stuff. But I don't think that applies anymore.
No.
And we see it a lot in business because we go to events and people speak and they stand up and people are at the edge of their seat, listening. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe everything they said. And I'm like, you shouldn't believe everything they said.
Yeah, there was that. What was the saying? Believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see, or what? There was
some famous.
It was
thing
was like a saying you never hear anymore because everyone just believes everything nowadays.
I ran across somebody so my husband and I we watch MMA, we watch UFC on Saturday nights. We both participated in various sports. I've done Muay Thai and jiu-jitsu, and my son does Wing Chun, and we know about martial arts.
Yeah. I'm
not a black belt in anything but there was somebody that I came across that said that they were a black belt in MMA. And I'm sitting there and I'm amongst a group of 40 or 50 people when this person is saying this, and everybody's like, oh, wow, she's a black belt in MMA. And I'm like, what? What is going on here? I'm looking around did I enter an alternate universe right now? So I went up and I asked her afterwards, I said, well, what are you a black belt in? And she said, MMA. I said, well, MMA is mixed martial arts. So are you a black belt in all the disciplines? That would be, I think, the only scenario of which that would apply. And she's like, no, I'm a black belt in this one thing. And I said, why not just say you're a black belt in that one thing? You're not a black belt in MMA. And it was on her, all of the stuff that she was handing out and everything. And everybody was just eating it up.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. And I'm like, it's not okay. Just say who you are. Like, you'll get more credibility, because I might have actually signed up to work with her because the discipline that she actually is a black belt in, I would be interested in. But the fact that
She lied.
she said I'm a black belt in MMA, I'm like, that's impossible. Like, unless you're a black belt in Muay Thai, in Jiu-Jitsu, in all of them, you can't be a black belt in mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
Like, it was so disappointing.
Yeah.
Just say who you are. Yeah. Like, I don't want to know everything about somebody. You don't have to air all your dirty laundry. But like, the imposter syndrome around here. If you were a doctor and you got your license taken away because you committed a crime and you went to jail, don't call yourself a doctor anymore. I'm just saying. Yeah. Like,
I mean, we had that. There was like a national story just recently. A local woman got arrested for pretending to be a nurse.
Oh, yes, that's right.
She actually went to, college or something with somebody who was a valid nurse, and they shared the same first name, and she stole her identity. And then when they asked her about, why is the last name different? She's like, oh, I just recently got married. And they said, okay, we'll give a copy of your marriage certificate. They never did, never followed up. And the only reason they found out is she was up for promotion. So, I mean...
I know, working in a hospital, it was all over the news.
And I'm like, that's a total imposter. Like, even my parents' previous neighbor, which she told me she was a neurosurgeon, so, okay, that's a pretty big thing, so no big deal. I took it at face value. I had no reason to question anything differently.
Until she wanted to operate on your brain. You're like, hold up.
No, but then it was like, through other things, like months went by, and then, my dad's health was failing and she stepped in, and then something she said, I was just like, something's just not right here. So I'm like, let me look her up. She's a nurse practitioner, which again, nothing wrong with being a nurse practitioner, but why pretend to be a neurosurgeon? They're not even the same schooling. It's not like, oh, you need 2 extra classes. Nursing school, is a totally different trajectory of what they teach than being a doctor.
I do find that there are some imposters in the medical profession. People study online medical stuff and whatever, or like you said, they're a physician's assistant or they're a nurse or something, and all of a sudden they're an expert in every wound, every ailment, everything that you have, and I'm like, really? I really don't think I should be mixing all of the things together. I don't think so. You have to question, but why not just stay in your expertise? I don't understand why people feel the need to give more than they know, or seem bigger than they are, or seem more important than they are. I don't know if it's because when I was younger, if you wanted to learn something, it was open up the Encyclopedia Britannica, go to the page, read about it. I don't know if it's because everybody has information at their fingertips and they're watching YouTube videos and whatever, and they're gaining all this information and they're not discerning whether it's garbage or not. And they're putting all of it into their head, and then they feel the need to share it. Well, and I'm like, this is a legitimate conversation. I said to somebody, well, where did you get that information? They said, oh, I watched a video on YouTube. And I'm like, well, I mean, then it must be true. Clearly.
Well, even my dad, who lived to 96, okay, ripe old age. I remember a couple years prior to that, he read a book on eating for your blood type. Again, no credibility to this book. It was okay, if you're a B positive, you should avoid turkey and whatever. The guy was ostracized in the community. That it was just a terrible book. There was no basis in foundation. But my dad read this and he retained it. So now all of a sudden the foods that my mom has cooked his entire life, I can't eat that. Would you try to kill me? And she's like, for the love of God, you can't chew beef with your dentures and you won't eat
She's like, you got the book at Walmart. You just didn't come down on Mount Sinai. Come on now.
No, but it's like, but you see that, or even like you get the things like when I first moved down, I was just shocked at the amount of calls that my mom got with people pretending to be this. Oh, this is from the police athletic league, and this is from the this. And I'm like, this is probably some guy in India, like, working out of his basement, just. You're on the gullible list. You've been on the gullible list for a long time because, I would notice one guy would call for one thing and the same voice, like I'm pretty good with certain. It'd be the same person pretending to be someone else. And then, or she won this.
Maybe he's a master fundraiser for the firefighters, the police, and the veterans. You don't know, Antoinette. Come on.
No, but I've had fights with people. They call me and they're like, oh, it's for the police, whatever, and I'm like, okay, so I'm on the federal do not call list. So you think violating federal law to solicit funds, I should give money to you? Like, I don't see how you're, yeah.
They hung up on her. Then she calls them back. Can I have money for my charity?
Mine's legitimate. Look it up. Yeah. Or a lot of times what I find, like ways to understand if people, like, I think if somebody's lying, there's some key aspects that you could maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So one that I've come across is when somebody's lying, they give you way too much information.
Oh, for sure.
So, and that's part of the reasons is I'm a big psychology nut, like health, like whatever.
Me as well.
So with psychology, when you're coming up with a lie, your brain is coming up with a story, and therefore it needs these details to formulate the story. So they come out as the person saying it. So for example, if I go to Laura, hey, where'd you go out to lunch yesterday? And if she actually went out to lunch yesterday and went, oh, I went to, whatever, Bob's Bar and Grill, or, whatever it was, that's all she'd say. If all of a sudden it's like, well, I hit traffic and I went this and there was 3 napkins on the table. I already know she didn't go there. like none of this is relevant to anything we're speaking about.
Because think about it. So somebody told me, this is a great analogy. When you go to a comedy show, right, you listen and you laugh. But then what happens like the next day? People are like, oh, how was the comedy show? And you're like, oh, it was so funny. And they're like, well, what were some of the jokes? And you're like,
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Right? Because they're not Laura's memories.
Yeah.
Right? The laughing and the joking and the experience is my memories, but the actual stories that the comedians told aren't my stories.
Yeah.
So when somebody is telling the truth, it's because they actually experienced it and it formed a memory in their brain.
Yeah.
When they haven't experienced something, that's when like they can't recall. And so then they start fumbling around all directions. I mean, the easiest one is like, if you call in sick and you're sick, you're like, I'm sick, I can't come in. Book, end of story. Like, I want to go back to bed.
Yeah.
Right?
Like I threw up 5 times.
I've been up all night. And then the dog joined me in throwing up. And then, the bird flew into the house. And like, I don't know. It's just been a really bad day. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What is going on? But imposters.
That's what they do. They over embellish. Yeah.
They over embellish. But the key is that like people that are compulsive liars, they do tell themselves the same story over and over and over again. Like they say, I'm a neurologist.
Yeah.
I'm a neurologist. So eventually they do like some self-hypnosis and they believe it.
Yeah.
And so that's when it gets really tricky, when somebody's been telling the same message over and over again. But if you start to ask them questions, now they've told themselves they're a neurologist, but they aren't prepared with all the other questions.
Yeah.
So if you started questioning that neighbor, you find out very quickly that she's in fact not a neurologist and she's just a nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
And so you just say like, well, where did you go to school? When did you graduate? Like, just start asking questions about the degree or whatever it is. Like in that MMA example, I said, well, what disciplines are you a black belt in? And I don't even know I'm sure she knows all the disciplines. She's just not a black belt in all of them.
Yeah.
So you just ask a couple questions, very simple questions that somebody in that realm should be able to answer. And you'll find out very quickly that they aren't, in fact, were not in the military, they were in the reserves. That's a pet peeve of my husband's, who was in the Army. Like, people start talking to him and he'll be like, and I notice it because I know him so well that he'll start asking questions. He'll be like, oh, well, where were you stationed? Or like, he'll start asking certain questions and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's totally onto them. Like, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to watch this play out. Then we find out, like, they were just,
1 week in a month.
Yeah, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that they don't deserve recognition for their service.
Just be honest about what you did.
But be honest about the service that you completed. You didn't sign up for 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years. Like, you signed up for 1 weekend a month. Like,
well, the other thing that you notice too is when someone's an imposter, their story changes. And that's just part of the thing. If it's part of your memory, it's part of your memory. And it's different to say, like, you might forget the details a little bit, but you're never going to forget the overall thing. Like, if I asked Laura, like, what'd you eat last Wednesday, she probably won't remember. But if I ask her, like, when you found out, I don't know, like, let's say something terrible happened to, I don't want to jinx anything, but something terrible happened to my dog, which I don't have. But if I said, when you got the news, where were you? She's not going to, like, forget. If it was something so traumatic, was I in the grocery store and this? And then a year later, it's, no, I was here. Like, there's
that's why people remember where they were in 9/11, but not on 9/13.
Exactly.
Same thing.
Exactly. So
I do remember what I ate last Wednesday, though. The day before Thanksgiving. So that was an easy one. All the kids are home.
No, but it was like, but those are the things where you notice what I find when somebody's like lying or they're creating a story, a lot of times they're overcompensating for something, an insecurity they have. So they create this story to overcompensate this insecurity, but they don't realize that in the story that they create, there's all these loose ends. They're trying to make themselves look good, but a lot of times it makes themselves look worse. And then when they get questioned on it, they have to, this, and this. And then next time they tell the story, they're going to try to divert that one that just bit them in the ass.
I just don't understand why they do it.
I don't know.
Like, if you don't have the credibility or you don't have the skills to be whatever it is that you're saying you are, then go get them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to tell people that I speak 10 different languages. I barely speak English. Like,
but then on a psychological basis. So another thing is an imposter is, for example, like, let's say you're a gay person and you're living as a straight person, or you don't want to.
That happens a lot.
Which, that's being an imposter, And they did this study, this was years ago, like in Harvard, where people had certain things, like maybe somebody had, I don't know, like a really bad stutter where it was very obvious. And, it was one of those things where if somebody, let's say, was gay, you could hide it easier. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And they did a study as far as their like mental and psychological things throughout their life. And you would think the people that could hide this thing would actually do better in life. And they actually did worse, because the whole rationale behind it is if you're actually true to who you are, you're more likely to attract like people. Mm-hmm. And then you can have, you're not living this double entendre and you feel like a fraud and a fake. Like, you're still a unified individual and you're more likely to attract like-minded,
Yeah.
Where
it's
if
true.
you're, and it's not even healthy. I mean, is my point. So if you're doing this thing like, I'm a neurosurgeon, and you think it makes you feel better, in the end, it's probably doing harm to your psyche, even if everybody believes you, because you have a great profession that you're not even proud of, and you're actually insulting yourself.
Well, I'm going to go biblical on this, right? Because God created I'm going to go biblical. God created everybody for a unique purpose. Now, how long it takes us to find that purpose is different for everybody, because some people are still searching for it in their 70s and 80s, right? But God created everybody in his image and his likeness. And like, society is what I feel like makes people feel shame or guilt or insecure. And then they have to create this story to live up to whatever is going on in the world. And so if people really just started to, love themselves for who they are. Okay, so maybe you didn't make it to be a doctor. Like I didn't make it to be a doctor. Antoinette's not a doctor. Like not everybody's going to be a doctor. Like just be the best you that you can be because there's only one you.
Yeah.
And God needs you here for a certain reason. Just be the best you. Don't be somebody else.
Yeah.
You know,
Because
and I think
it's so-
society puts so much pressure on people to be something they're not. And that's why they hide it and they feel shame and they feel guilt and they feel all these negative feelings. When you start feeling negative feelings, that's not from God.
No.
That's from somebody that's trying to deter you from your path. That's, Satan, the devil, Lucifer, whatever you want to call it. That's somebody that's trying to deter you from your path. And so I think society plays a huge role in not helping people love who they are. And instead, they'll just sedate them, give them drugs, diagnose the symptoms and whatever, instead of helping people just say like, well, okay, so you know what? Maybe you're never going to be a doctor, or maybe you're going to have a stutter for the rest of your life, but it's fine. Like it's okay. Like it's perfectly fine.
I find honestly, people's imperfections is what makes them kind of unique and lovable. Like if everybody
if they're true to their imperfections.
Exactly. Exactly.
Can't stand fake.
But I think so many people try to like cover things up or do this or they're ashamed of it. And it's those little imperfections that when I think of, Uncle Bob or this, whatever, it's that goofiness that you're like, oh, that's so endearing.
Unless it's like, slimy Uncle Bob.
No, exactly. Well, there's that. But
that's at your parties.
We don't all have my family, but yeah. No, that's Uncle Frankie,
really,
and you know who you are, and everyone has called you out. So.
Totally just named him. Like,
oh, please, everyone knows.
I don't know who he is.
You'd know in the first 5 seconds.
But you're right, though.
Yeah.
The people that like aren't true to themselves, those are like the background characters in the story.
Yeah.
The people that are just honest and true, like whatever path they took to get to where they are, and they just lay it all out there, those are the ones that you can trust. Those are the ones that make you feel comfortable, that have something interesting to say. Like, I don't want people to cover up their past. Like, it got you to where you are. We all had horrible things.
Yeah.
Like, one statistic that I was just talking to somebody about the other day is I actually don't know a woman that hasn't been sexually abused, mentally abused, or in some way, shape, or form abused by the time they reach, like, their 30s. That's a horrible thing to say. But maybe if people start, like, talking about it and owning up to it and saying, like, this happened to me, oh, me too, and all, that's why there's like this whole Me Too movement instead of like suppressing it and becoming like a wallflower.
I heard this. There was somebody that was telling me this story, which I thought was really interesting. So they went to a graduation party. So this particular individual who's graduating wasn't going to college after graduation. And everybody at the party, all the friends and family was like, oh, what school are you going? What college? And they were like, I'm not. And they were almost shamed for that. So this person seeing that this, they started out the day happy and then became like, so
they should have been celebrating getting their
and instead
degree.
they made to feel bad. So this person came to them and they're like, so what are you doing? What's the next thing on your agenda? And he said they came to life. They're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And they have a whole future in their head. But because they didn't fit into this box that everyone thinks this is the box all correct people go into, and it's a shame. And that's, I think, why these imposters create, because now you have to hide who you are to appease the relatives or appease the this, and it ends up being more dangerous than you think.
It's funny because in other countries, when you ask somebody like who they are, the first reaction isn't what they do for a living.
No.
They say like, I like to mountain climb and I like to do this and I like to do that. In America, though, you say like, oh, what do you do? And the first thing people think about is their profession.
Yeah.
And they identify as that profession. And if you haven't leveled up in your profession, then that's where shame and guilt and maybe the imposter syndrome happens. It's really sad. But the moral, because we have to wrap things up here. So the moral of the story is, if you don't take everything at face value, because there are people amongst you that are spinning a yarn or whatever they are. They're pretending to be somebody that they're not. And so don't take their advice, don't take their information at 100%. Like, ask some questions, do a little research. So we have to close things up. But our next episode, I'm so excited about, because we're going to talk about, we're recording in December. And so we're going to be talking about like the new year. People have some bad habits and people have some good habits. So how do you start good habits and how do you break bad habits? That's going to be our next episode. But we have to wrap things up. So until then, never stop learning.
And never stop laughing. See you soon.